Hey everyone, welcome back to Sports Soup with Lou. We're going to run down some college football and the pros today, recap some stats from all the games, and look forward to next week's games. And happy Thursday. So without further ado, let's dive into that soup. We're going to start it off with that big Georgia-Tennessee game. Georgia pulled it off 44-41. Gunner Stockton 23 for 31, 304, 2 touchdowns. Had 13 rushes for 38 yards and a touchdown. I had big questions about him going into last week, but he definitely proved a lot to me. So going forward, I'll be keeping an eye out on this Georgia team. Maybe they're a little more serious. Although I will say Joey Aguilar still had himself a game. Got to clean up the turnovers. Went 24-36, 371, 4 touchdowns, 2 picks. Was negative 8 yards on the ground. Did have another rushing touchdown as well. And give some love to Brazil the second there. 6 receptions, 173, and he had 3 touchdowns. So, Tennessee looks like a good offense. Georgia just came out, was a little too much for them. Going to jump into another big game. Texas A&M, Notre Dame. Marcel Reed, 17 for 37, 360, 2 touchdowns and interception. Le'Veon Moss, though, 20 rushes, 81 yards, 3 tutties. That was definitely a pretty big push on the back end there, and got to give some love to Mario Craver here. 7 receptions, 207, and a touchdown this week. And C.J. Carr, 293, a tutty and a pick. Minus 15 rush yards. Jeremiah Love had a decent game, 94 yards and a touchdown. But Notre Dame headed into this week still hanging in those rankings at 24. And if I'm some of those top teams, I'm keeping an eye out for them. They got a tough schedule, but I'm not even going to say they got a couple tough teams that could be tough on their schedule down the road, but I wouldn't put Notre Dame quite out of the playoff as a 2, possibly even 3-loss team, depending on how both A&M and Miami continue to fare through the season. Speaking of Miami, going to jump to that USF Miami game. Miami took them down 49-12. Bynum Brown didn't look as sharp as he had the first 2 weeks. Went 20 for 36, 274, a touchdown and a pick. Only had 2 yards rushing on 13 rushes. Carson Beck on the opposite side of that for Miami. Pretty good day. Another just got to clean up the turnovers, because against some of these bigger teams, those turnovers will turn that scoreboard over on you. Went 340, 3 tutties, 2 picks, and rushed for 28 yards as well with a touchdown. Fletcher Jr. also 16, 120, 2 touchdowns. Had himself another nice game. Moving through the top 25 here, so bear with me on some of these. Just going to lay down stats for, the bigger ranked team in here for you guys. Ohio State, 37-9. Ohio State blew the doors off it. Julian Sayin, 25 for 32, 347, 3 touchdowns. Did have 2 interceptions that game, and more of the receivers just looking great in this game is why I'm mentioning stats here. Jeremiah Smith, 9 receptions for 153 and a touchdown, and Carnell Tate for 5 receptions for 101 and a touchdown. So Ohio State's still rolling. We'll see down the road here. They got some big matchups coming up in the next few weeks. Moving on, and this one I'm going to talk about a little more, because highly touted going into this season, a lot of talk about them. UTEP and Texas. Texas wins 27-10. Shouldn't have been that close of a game, to be honest with you. Texas's defense held it down all game. 259 total yards, 10 points allowed, 2 interceptions. Manning went for 114 yards, a TD and a pick. And ran for 51 and 2 touchdowns. I mean, back to what I was saying, Arch Manning, he's going to throw a pick every game against these better teams. I guarantee you it's going to be more than one. And for all the talk coming into the season, like, he's definitely not looking like he's up to Heisman standards thus far. And also going to get, as a team, Texas did rush for 227 on the ground against that UTEP team, but 114 yards through the air. I don't think that's acceptable, but we'll see. We'll see as we keep going. Maybe this is just like him finally settling in, knowing he has the keys to the Ferrari and everything like that, and maybe these weeks will pick up as we go down further through the season. Auburn against Southern Alabama, 31-10. Auburn took care of that one. Auburn took care of it rushing as a group, 195 yards, 3 touchdowns on the day. It's pretty much all we're going to talk about there because there wasn't really much anything else that was really impressive about that. Just one of those lopsided matches. Same thing here with Illinois and Western Michigan. Illinois shut them out 38-0. Defense did their thing. Altmaier 17 for 26, 196, 2 touchdowns. Fegan went for 20 rushes, 100 yards, and a touchdown, and they had 3 touchdowns on the ground. So, Illinois taking care of business. That's always a nice sign. So, but they got the Hoosiers this week. That may be a different animal they're going to face this week. LSU 20-10 over Florida. Lagway struggles again. 33 for 49, 287, a touchdown, and 5 interceptions. It is not looking good for that Florida team, and it's hard not to mention the conversation of whether, you start thinking about whether we're going to fire Billy Napier or not and how we're going to move forward with that program. But I believe that those conversations in that building should start. They got a tough matchup against Miami this week. A lot of people are saying, hey, watch out, Miami. Florida could clip you here this week. Don't sleep on Florida. I don't think they're going to sleep on Florida, first off. And number two, I think Miami has a way overall better team than Florida has this year. And, I mean, maybe it is time to move on from Napier, but, yeah, just not where Florida expected to be, 2 and possibly what's going to be 3 weeks into the season, and still not finding a way to get a W. Other side of that, LSU, Nussmeier was pretty pedestrian, 15 for 27, 220, a touchdown and a pick. Durham went 15 rushes for 93 yards. Nothing really too exciting in that game that really jumps off the table on you. Wisconsin, Alabama. Alabama went up to Wisconsin, embarrassed them, 38-14. That's not a lot of people expected that. I'm not too big on this Wisconsin team this year. They were 2-0 going into this week, but yeah, that level of competition is a lot different when they got Alabama. So, Jeremy Bernard had a good day, rush, receiving, touchdown. Ty Simpson, 24 for 29, 382, 4 touchdowns, and 25 rush yards. Ryan Williams went off for 5 receptions, 165, and 2 touchdowns. And Wisconsin's Danny O'Neal, 11 for 17, 117, touchdown, 2 picks. Just level of competition and, more pedestrian stats that, just aren't going to win against those big teams in college football. Moving on to another top team, we got Penn State taking on Villanova. Penn State's defense dominated, 32-6. Aller goes 16 for 29, 209, and a touchdown and a pick. Singleton had 2 touchdowns, and Allen had a touchdown, and they had a team total of 237 on the ground. More Penn State style of football, and didn't really go too much to the passing, or well, I should say the passing game never really got going in that game. We had Oregon and Northwestern. Oregon took care of business, 34-14. Oregon was creating turnovers. all game on defense. Dante Moore went 16 for 20, 178, a tutty and a pick. Rushing wise, they had 176 and 3 tutties on the ground to really take care of Northwestern on the lakefront there this weekend. Louisville, Missouri. Missouri beat the brakes off them, 52 to 10. Perbula went 15 for 22, 174, 2 tutties and a pick. Ahmad Hardy went for 250 and 3 touchdowns, and Marquise Davis went for 113 and a touchdown. And yeah, Missouri just handled business there. They're a tough team. I'm looking forward to seeing them face a top opponent this year and see how they fare there. But so far out the gate, I'd definitely be not wanting to have to take on Missouri this year in Missouri, because that's going to be a tough way out regardless of who you are. Michigan, Central Michigan, another just complete blowout, 63-3. Michigan takes care of business. Defense was dominant. Run game was going. Underwood went 16 for 25, 235, a touchdown and pick. But I feel like they finally unlocked his run game this game. Went 9 rushes for 114 and 2 touchdowns. Total first 2 game rushes for Underwood was minus 6 yards. So really turning around with Underwood's run game. Team as a whole putting up 63 points. They're going to put up touchdowns, but they had 390 on the ground and 8 touchdowns rushing this past Saturday. So Michigan taking care of business. Vandy got the best of South Carolina, 31-7, 146 yards, 2 TDs on the ground as a team for Vandy. Pavia went 18 for 25, 177, 2 TDs and a tutty. And Sellers went 6 for 7, 94 yards, no touchdowns and 2 picks. Unfortunately, does go out of this game, and Doty coming in for him didn't really help any. So we'll see what direction that goes and how serious the Sellers injury is. Probably going to miss some time from what I'm hearing right now, but you never know the way they could turn these things around. Clemson, Georgia Tech, 55 yards to end the game. Georgia Tech takes down Clemson. Clemson just having more of those offensive miscues, and the struggles are continuing. The defense looks a little bit soft. Klubnik went for 207, tutty and a pick. Went 62 yards and a tutty on the ground too. Westco Jr. went 7 for 126 and a touchdown. King for Georgia Tech went 20 for 28, 211. But had 103 and a touchdown on the ground as well. And I mean, I think this Clemson team's kind of falling apart here. So we'll have to look forward and see what happens with them. But not looking good from the perceived dives over these first few weeks for Clemson. And Oklahoma, Temple. Oklahoma took care of business, both sides of the ball, 42-3. Blaylock had a big day, 100 yards, 2 touchdowns. Mateer went 20 for 34 with 282, a touchdown and a pick. As a team, they had 228 yards on the ground and 4 touchdowns. And Oklahoma seems to be taking care of business coming off that Michigan win too. So Michigan turned it around. Oklahoma seems to keep flowing. Moving on, Iowa State, Arkansas State, 24-16. Not much to talk about here. You know, we'll touch on Rocco Beck's stats because he's supposed to be the name in Iowa State right now. So he went 14 for 25, 265, a tutty and a pick, rushed for 4 yards and had a touchdown on the ground. Iowa State still going on with these sneaky wins. How long is it going to last until you face a Michigan or an Ohio State down the road here or something like that? We'll see how it goes. Maybe they can get some more consistency going and start having a couple more of these games, or start having a game to where they walk into, take care of business, and walk out with a big win without having to sweat it out till the end of the game. Ole Miss, Arkansas. What a fun game. Quarterback battle. Really enjoyable. Taylon Green, 305, a tutty. He had 115 and a tutty on the ground as well. Trinidad Chambliss was 21 for 29 with 353 and a touchdown on the ground. And he went for 62 and 2 touchdowns on the ground. This was a real fun game to watch. These two always battle when they meet each other. And we'll see if Ole Miss keeps rolling the way they are, but that was a big win for them to come out with there. Utah took care of business against Wyoming, 31-6. Dampier went for 230, 2 touchdowns, 311 rush yards for Utah with 2 more touchdowns on the ground. So overall, I'll say they had a good offensive day, and the defense took care of business as well for Utah. Texas Tech, Oregon State, 45-14. Texas Tech took care of business. Malik Murphy went 278, 2 touchdowns, 2 picks, minus 20 rush yards, unfortunately for him. But defensive-wise here, Texas Tech, 8 total rush yards through the game. And then Bayron Morton went 22 for 35, 464, 4 tutties, and a pick. You know what? I apologize. That Malik Murphy stat is incorrect. And let's get into some of these games next week. I'll go ahead and let you guys know who I like in these two. Run through them all. We got Texas Tech, Utah. This is a game that I think should be really interesting. But I think those Red Raiders are really running, so I'm gonna go ahead and take Texas Tech there. We got the UAB Blazers and the Volunteers. Tough loss coming off Georgia. I think Tennessee takes it out on UAB. Comes out with a big dub and gets back on track. Oregon State. Not much to be said there. I think that one will be a pretty hefty win for Oregon. Notre Dame's got Purdue this week. Hanging on, like I said, hanging on at 24 in those rankings. And, I mean, this Purdue team ain't a bad Purdue team, but I think Notre Dame's got some built-up rage that they may take out on Purdue and finally get in the win column this week and kind of get it rolling. Ole Miss at home against Tulane might be a closer game than some people think, but I like Ole Miss by a touchdown there. Auburn, Oklahoma. This is another big game. I don't know which side of this I'm on. But this is another one of those that kind of how Georgia Tech and Clemson came down to that game-ending field goal last week from 55. I could see that, and I think that one could go either way. Got Michigan, Nebraska. If Underwood could do what he did last week, prevent the turnovers, and that defense looks as dominant as it was last week, Michigan should be able to take care of Nebraska. Florida State, Kent State. I like the Seminoles big in that one. Georgia Tech's got Temple. I think that's going to be Georgia Tech keep rolling type of thing. They're coming off a really big win against Clemson, and I think they're gonna kind of show that this week. Missouri's got South Carolina. Keeping an eye on Sellers, see what happens there. If South Carolina's got Sellers, you may want to watch that game because Mizzou could trip there. But no Sellers, I think Mizzou could roll that game pretty easily. Vandy, Georgia State. I like Vandy big in that one. 3 touchdowns. Not much to talk about there. I think this may be one of the biggest games of the week. Illinois, Indiana. See if the Illini could keep rolling, but, these Hoosiers are trying to get some recognition, and for just reason, they're 3-0. But this will be one of their first big opponents on the year, and if Indiana does upset Illinois, people are going to start talking about them down there again. And, that program's been good for a few years now, and it's only getting better, so we'll see how that game goes. That's a big one. I plan on paying a lot of attention to this weekend. Got Florida, Miami. Mentioned a little earlier. Don't think Florida's going to be able to hang. I haven't seen enough out of that offense these first 2 weeks or these first 2 games that they've played. Uh, think this is the end for Napier. I don't know if they'll do it right away. They may wait, but I think it's time to go a different direction when it comes to coaching with them. Got Southeastern Louisiana, LSU huge. I mean, they look like they're just going to keep rolling. USC, Michigan State. Uh, I'd watch out for Michigan State here. It is a 17.5 point spread, so I mean, USC looks good here, but I I don't know if Michigan State can win this, but I like Michigan State plus 17.5 here. See how that goes. Uh, Last thing we got on deck, Sam Houston and Texas. Uh, I expect to see pedestrian stuff again, just like Manning did last week. He's going to have his interceptions. He's going to have his problems, and Texas will still win. But we'll see if it's an actual pretty one to where they go there and just blow the doors off and open up the scoring. And defense has been humming all year. I don't expect that to be any different. So we'll see how that goes. And with that, we're going to start jumping into some of this NFL. Going to go ahead and recap some stats in some of those games. Going to give you my free agent waiver wire pickups this week, as well as my best bets, and then we're going to dive into the matchups and get our game picks for both tonight and this coming weekend and Monday. So let's start off with last Thursday's game, Washington, Green Bay. Green Bay wins that 27-18. Daniels gets hurt in that game. 51 total rush yards as an offense for Washington. Very uncharacteristic of them. Can't win if you can't rush the ball. Love went for 292 and 2 touchdowns. Jacobs had 84 and a touchdown on the ground. And Tyler Kraft had one of probably his best games with 6 receptions for 124 yards and a touchdown. And that Green Bay defense, Micah Parsons really putting a spark in the rest of those young kids. And seems like the development stage and all those years of spending first-round picks on defensive players may start paying off. And I think this Green Bay's defense actually is serious. I said, I wanted to go into last Thursday knowing how serious and whether, it was Detroit's offense or, the lack of Detroit's offense, lack of Green Bay, or, just Green Bay's defense is that good. I got to say, I think Green Bay's defense is that good, and I can't argue that anymore. Jump into the Cleveland-Baltimore game. Baltimore handling business, coming off that tough Week 1 loss to the Bills, 41-17. They take care of Cleveland. Baltimore was dominant everywhere. Only allowed 45. Cleveland's defense, to credit here, only allowed 45 team rush yards from Baltimore. But Jackson did go for 225 and 4 touchdowns through the air and was able to handle business there. Jump into a little bit of a thriller here, the Giants and Dallas game. Overtime game. I worry that might wind down to a tie because it looked like no one wanted to make the big play in overtime. Dallas takes care of it though. 40-37. Dak went for 361, 2 touchdowns and a pick. Williams had 97 yards on the ground and a touchdown. CeeDee Lamb went for 112. Wilson went 30 for 41 with 450 yards, 3 touchdowns and a pick in this game. And Malik Neighbors and Wan'Dale Robinson had days. Neighbors went 9 receptions, 167, 2 touchdowns, and Robinson went 8 receptions, 142, and 1 touchdown. Brandon Aubrey, though, 4 for 4, 64-yard field goal to tie the game to take it into overtime. And he hits the game winner in overtime. So, hats off to Brandon Aubrey. Not many kickers in the league can kick the way he does or from the distance he does. So, Dallas taking care of it. They're headed to Chicago this week. We'll talk a little more about that game later on. Cincy squeaking it out against Jacksonville this week. Cincy's defense created some turnovers again this week. The offense still had some struggles. I think a lot of that had to do with Burrow going down with that injury. Lawrence turnovers, man. That if Lawrence doesn't turn the ball over the way he turns the ball over, Jacksonville could have won this game. He had 271 through the air, 3 touchdowns, 2 picks, and he did have a fumble. Thankfully, he didn't lose it, but I mean, these turnovers seem to keep creeping up. Jamar Chase had a nice day, 14 receptions, 165 and a touchdown. Browning came in for Burrow, went for 241 and 3 touchdowns. 3 total touchdowns, but also had 3 picks in this game. Looks like Burrow's out for the season. That's a hit on me. He's my fantasy guy, so they're turning to Browning for now, and we'll see how that goes going forward. But hope Burrow gets better and gets better soon. So let's move on to that New England-Miami game. New England squeaks it out, beating Miami 33-27. May went for 230, 2 touchdowns, 31 yards on the ground, another touchdown. Stevenson had 54 yards on the ground on 11 rushes and 88 yards through the air. Tua went for 315, 2 touchdowns and a pick. A-Chain had himself a nice day, over 120 all-purpose yards with the touchdown. Hill finally got over the hill with 109 yards, finally got his 100-yard game, but they still couldn't get it done. And end of the day here, we got to start keeping that. Media's hyping it up. I kind of get why Miami can't figure out a way to turn things around down there. I think some decisions are going to come down from that front office about who's standing on that sideline. But even with that said, if McDaniel would get fired from that organization, I don't think he'll be unemployed long. I still think he has what it takes to be a good to great offensive coordinator in this league. That's why he got that job in the first place. It was a well-deserving job, but I think more so moves that the organization has made as a whole and decisions that the organization has made as a whole hasn't helped Mike McDaniel at all, and that's why they're trending in such a bad direction. And also to his health over the last couple seasons definitely has a lot to do with that as well. And it's a tough one to talk about. The whooping Detroit put on Chicago 52-21. Bears fan, first thing I'll say, and I think we need to start opening the idea of moving on from players. Offensive line as a whole supposed to be as good as it is. We got to clean up the pre-snap penalties. There was, I believe, a penalty, if not multiple penalties, on everyone who played offensive line for the Bears. This past Sunday, Williams went for 207, 2 tutties, a pick. Nothing great. Swift 63 yards on the ground and a touchdown. Woo, Goff, on the other hand, had himself a day. He's put up 52. You're going to have yourself a day. 334, 5 touchdowns. St. Brown went for 115 and 3 touchdowns. And Jamison Williams got in on the action and went for 108 and a touchdown as well. A lot of talk about not seeing Loveland out there for a lot of those snaps. His snap rate's pretty low for someone that you take 10th overall in the draft. And I don't know if that's just scheme. I don't know if that is, doubts that the coaching staff may have in his ability to play every snap. But, hopefully we get some answers to that in the coming weeks, and hopefully that can improve. And, this game, the way Detroit was able to pile on points, I know the Bears are same old Bears. It's sure looking like this year, not looking like we're going to get much anything special, but other than looking at player progress of young guys progressing to where who and what we hope they are within the organization. So it's where I go with Green Bay had that good of a defense if they were able to really make Detroit look how they did last week, but then Detroit bounces back this week and shows the Bears what's up and that they still have it on that offensive side. Gonna get back to that San Francisco NOLA game. Little battle. Mac Jones, Rattler. I mean, NOLA's trying to figure it out and rebuilding. And San Fran's just beat up, and San Fran was able to sneak it out 26-21. Mac Jones went for 279 and 3 touchdowns. C-Mac had 55 on the ground, 52 through the air, and a touchdown, went over 100 total all-purpose yards again, and got a score. Rattler did go for 207, 3 touchdowns. He did have a pick. And Kamara went for over 100 yards. Wasn't able to get in the end zone, though. See how that goes. Kamara's a guy, as I mentioned last week, kind of keeping an eye on how that NOLA team does, and he could be one of those potential running backs come close to the trade deadline that some teams are calling NOLA about, being like, hey, you guys willing to come off him at all, or you want to stay true to NOLA and just stick his career out there with him. Buffalo Jets, get into that. Buffalo taking care of business, 30-10. Didn't let the Jets offense do much of anything. Justin Fields get hurts in this game. He's already been ruled out for this week, so Jets are going to have to look another direction at quarterback, and we'll see how that looks with what they got going on next week. Buffalo's offense looked good as usual. Cook went for 132, 2 touchdowns on the ground, 170 passing yards. Really just took care of business. Had a little scare with Josh there getting that bloody nose during the game and going out for a couple of plays, but end of the day they ended up taking care of business and getting the dub against the Jets, and they're looking really good so far and seem like they really got it figured out up there in Buffalo. McDermott and the boys. So Seattle, Pittsburgh. Seattle took care of business, 31-17. Pittsburgh managed 72 total rush yards this game. Nothing major. Pittsburgh kind of imploded here. Defense still looks really bad. Darnold looked good in this game. He went for 295, 2 touchdowns. He did have those 2 picks. Early was able to turn it around and not let that mess up his mental and his focus, and got it together. Walker had himself a good game, 105 and a touchdown. Smith-Njigba went for 103. Kupp went for 90. So, I mean, Darnold's really getting the ball spread out up there. Rodgers, not one of his best games that, he'll look back on. 203, touchdown, 2 picks. That Seattle's defense is pretty serious up there from what I've seen so far. Warren did have himself a decent day, though. He had 48 on the ground, 86 through the air. And see if they can't figure that running game out. More so that defense in Pittsburgh moving forward. Because with Burrow going down, I think that AFC North may have the possibility of sneaking an extra playoff team into the playoffs this year. But we'll talk about that more as we get through the season. A little early to talk all this playoff talk, only being 2 weeks into the season thus far. Moving on, we're going to hit the Rams in Tennessee. Rams took care of business, 33-19. Stafford, 298, 2 touchdowns and a pick. Adams went for 106 and a touchdown. Puka went for 91, had a 45-yard rush and a touchdown as well. Looking really good out there. That defense looks solid. Give some mention for Ward. He did go for 175 and a touchdown. Made some nice plays, made some nice passes. I think he has a bright future. I think it's just going to take time down there in Tennessee, as I was saying last week. So Arizona escapes one from Carolina. Carolina had a chance to win this game late, came up short. Uh, Only 49 total rushing yards for the Panthers. Uh, Not too great of a stat to go back and look at. Young threw 55 passes, completed 35 of them, went for 328, 3 touchdowns, and pick. McMillan had 100 yards on 6 catches, and Renfro had 7 catches for 48 and got in the end zone twice to keep Carolina in that game late, but ultimately coming up short. Murray went for 220, touchdown, pick, 32 yards on the ground. McBride on that side, 6 receptions, 78 yards. Arizona's got a tough battle coming up against San Francisco, although with all the injuries and, seeing Mac Jones for a week, Arizona, I think, will have a chance at that game, this big division game coming up this week. Denver and Indy, this game, just going to run down some stats and we'll talk about how that game ends. Knicks went for 206, 3 touchdowns, a pick, had another 20 on the ground. Dobbins got going, 76 rushes and a touchdown. Franklin got 8 receptions, 89 yards and a touchdown in that game. So Denver's offense humming a little better here week 2 against Indy. Jones, nice day, 316, a touchdown through the air, touchdown on the ground. Helped keep him in this game, and Taylor went for 165 on the ground. Great day for him. Had a receiving touchdown. Mentioned Jalen Warren here. 4 receptions, 79 yards. Didn't get in the end zone this week, but still looking good for second game for Tyler Warren down there with Indy, and Indy didn't win this one. Denver beat themselves, just like Cleveland in week 1 against Cincinnati. Denver ends up beating themselves. Stupid leverage call at the end of the game. 55 yards. I go ahead and let him attempt it. If I'm bringing that pressure, I'm going to try to send it heavy off the edge rather than doing that, because if the refs, a lot of guys get away with that, but not always, and this was just one of those times where refs seen it, called it, moves in, hits the 45-yarder. Indy's 2-0, Denver's 1-1. So, big games for Denver next week we'll fall into here. We are going to walk into this Philly KC game though. Here, pardon me, felt like there was some calls that maybe didn't go KC's way like they normally do. Hurts, 101 passing yards, 15 yards rushing, and a touchdown on the ground. That was Hurts' day. Barkley went for 88 yards and a touchdown. Mahomes went for 187, a touchdown, a pick. He had another 66 yards and a touchdown on the ground. Kelsey had 61 through the air, but that's about all that's to talk about with that offense, because all that KC offense right now is Patrick Mahomes. But on the flip side of that, I'm not seeing much out of that Philly offense, and they're going to run into some really good rush defenses throughout the season, and I would like to see if Jalen Hurts can beat a defense with his arm, because thus far this season it hasn't looked like it, although I can't argue the fact that if they're rushing the ball and they're rushing the ball well, why go away from what's winning you games? So, I mean, there's a double-edged sword there to talk about with Philly. See how it is going forward. Tough matchup against the Rams this week for Philly. KC heads to the Giants on Sunday night. Atlanta, Minnesota. This is probably my boring game of the week. Atlanta took care of business, 22-6. 78 total rush yards for Minnesota's offense. Penix threw for 135. Bijan Robinson went for 143 on the ground, while Algier went for another 76 and a touchdown. McCarthy went for 158, no touchdowns, 2 picks. Other side of this, 2 professional games, and it looks like he's going to be out 3 to 4 weeks. But I suppose it'll be nice because he did just have a baby, so he'll get to spend some time with his wife and his newborn while he recovers. Tampa Bay, Houston. This was another gritty match until the clock's at 0. White got the touchdown, rushing touchdown with 6 seconds left to go up 20-19 and seal the game. Mayfield just doing Mayfield things. Ran for 33 with 215 through the air with 2 touchdowns, no picks. Bucky Irving, 71 yards on the ground. White had 65 on the day. Stroud, pretty run-of-the-mill mediocreness, 207 touchdown. He didn't have a pick, and then Nico Collins was actually able to get in, 3 receptions, 52 yards. See if he can't get going a little more this week. And surprisingly enough to Houston's entire fan base, Chubb was actually able to get into the end zone, but still had a mere 43 yards. That offense is really missing Joe Mixon right now, and yeah, we'll see what it looks like going forward, and if any moves are made here in the coming weeks, if there's any setbacks for Mixon here. Chargers, Raiders, another meh, kind of slow, boring Monday night game. Vegas, I feel like, had a lot of opportunities. Geno throws 3 picks in this game. 180 yards through the air. He had 20 rush yards on the ground. No touchdowns. Genti only goes for 43 yards. Chargers come out on top 2019. Herbert, 242, 2 touchdowns, had 31 yards on the ground. But, I mean, that also for Herbert there, I mean, that they got to figure out despite that win against what I feel like is lower competition with the Raiders, they got to get that rush game going. 31 yards on the ground for Herbert. He was the leading rusher. Got to fix that out there. Got faith in Harbaugh, but you still got to take care of business. All right. It's our last game recapping in the NFL for week 2. So let's roll into our fantasy waiver wire ads this week. If you're like me and you're looking for a quarterback, losing Joe Burrow, or if you were running with McCarthy, Jaden Daniels, if you're looking for someone to fill in for him this week, I like Daniel Jones the most. Picking up, you got Russell Wilson out in a lot of these leagues, as well as Browning. A lot of people willing to gamble with Browning. A lot of people talking him up. We'll see how that goes. But I don't like it. I don't mind it as an ad here, going back up against backup Cincinnati, Minnesota this week. I think he could have a week against Minnesota, especially if there's no Harrison Smith again, because that'll pretty much turn into a wide receiver battle, I believe, between Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase, more so than Carson Wentz and Browning, although we do know what O'Connell could do up there with those quarterbacks. So another little, if you want to roll the dice and you're desperate for a quarterback for a week, filling in for Daniels, but it's a deeper league or something, that may be an idea to go streamline Carson Wentz up in Minnesota this week against that Cincy defense. Couple other pickups, Io Monner from Tennessee, seems to be becoming one of Cam Ward's favorite targets. I expect Cam Ward and that offense to continue to get better every week and improve and get faster and just process everything. So I feel like if he's looking at him the way he is now and giving him the targets, that's only going to increase week to week. So I like him as a waiver wire add this week. Wan'Dale Robinson after that big game against Dallas. I think Wilson's starting to get some chemistry with these receivers, although Darren Bland was out last week for the Cowboys, so that was opening one side of the field or the other up for Russell Wilson. So that's one of my borderlines there. Denver's Franklin, wide receiver. Uh, Bo Nix had a nice day with him. We could see if it keeps up. But that's one of my borderline wide receiver waiver wire ads this week as well for fantasy. And then last but not least, Aaron Jones going down. Some of these bigger 12-man or bigger leagues may not have him available, but these 8 and 10-man fantasy leagues, you could look to Jordan Mason this week for that Minnesota offense, because I think they will look to lean on that run a little bit and not force Carson Wentz to do too much too early or throughout this game that could really cost them. So I like Jordan Mason as my last waiver wire ad this week. Let's go ahead and run through our Week 3 picks, starting with tonight's game, Miami at Buffalo. I like Buffalo. Don't know how high scoring this one will be. I mean, I think Josh Allen and Buffalo get it done. We'll see where it goes, because we may have more news if Buffalo does blow the brakes off them. But probably coming out of Miami, I would assume tomorrow or by Monday. Sunday slate, we got Atlanta at Carolina. I like Atlanta in that game. I think Penix and them could really get it going and figure out that offense, and if that defense could settle down a little bit, I think that's the second best team in the NFC South behind these Buccaneers right here. Houston at Jacksonville. Trevor Lawrence doesn't seem like he's figured out how to clean up the turnovers on offense, and his decision making to me still isn't all the way there. I like Houston in that game. See CJ get it back on track down there, but only thing that may hold Houston back in that game is if they can't get that rush game going and they're forced to go through the air. I don't think that would end well for Houston if that's what ends up happening. Cincinnati at Minnesota, just talking about the wide receiver battle, everything there. I'd roll the dice on Browning. He's been with the team longer than Carson Wentz has been with Minnesota. So hope he has some familiarity in that offense, and he didn't look bad coming in for Burrow other than those 3 interceptions, which hopefully he could get cleaned up this week, getting first team reps and everything through practice. Pittsburgh, New England. I don't know if Pittsburgh's defense could get it on track, but I think Aaron Rodgers should be able to get it on track, and I like Pittsburgh taking care of New England, even in New England this week. Then we got the Rams, Philly. This is one of my highlight games of the week. I'll definitely be tuning in for this one. See if that Rams defense can't shut down that Eagles rushing offense, and see if Matt Stafford stays to form. And this will be a close one. I like the Rams by a field goal in that one. Tampa Bay and the Jets. No Justin Fields for the Jets. I believe it's going to be Tyrod Taylor taking the helm for the Jets, and they're in Tampa. I like Tampa this week. Think that defense is slowly figuring it out. The offense seems to be humming, and I mean, Baker just keeps doing Baker things, big plays, big times, big moments. That's who he is. That's what he loves. So I like Tampa Bay taking care of business there. Indy at Tennessee. I think Tennessee's still figuring it out. I think Daniel Jones keeps it rolling. It's had a good first 2 weeks. I expect it to continue against Tennessee, who's kind of in a small rebuild here. So Indy over Tennessee there. And we got the Raiders and Washington. Uh, I'm coin flipping this game. I don't think Geno has as bad of a game as he had last week. Although, Washington's defense, I think, should be able to take care of business. And Mariota didn't look bad in a couple games last year for Washington, filling in for Jaden Daniels. So I think Washington ultimately will win this game, but this might be a close one. Big AFC West matchup, Denver at the Chargers. Like the Chargers in this game, and it's only really that like both these defenses. I like both these offenses, but I like the Chargers a little more just because Herbert takes care of the ball, and Bo Nix has struggled to do that, so I think that'll be the edge to the Chargers, plus them being at home. I like the Chargers by 3-7. No at Seattle. I think Seattle's just going to keep it rolling. That defense looks good. I think they're going to give Rattler and Kamara a problem, especially on that front four. I like Seattle in that game. Dallas at Chicago. Uh, we know neither of these teams' defense knows how to show up on game day. So with that said, I see it turning into a quarterback shootout, and I've seen Dak Prescott win a lot more of those shootouts, and I've seen Caleb Williams win. So I like Dallas this week at Chicago, probably by a couple touchdowns, to be honest with you. Arizona at San Fran. Despite the injuries, I think San Fran gets it done. I feel like Arizona's trying to find their offense a little bit here early in the season still. So I like San Fran, but another game I'll call, San Fran by a field goal. I don't think it'll be a blowout in that one. KC at the Giants. Everyone wants to throw all these stats out. KC's 0-7 at the Giants. Okay, I don't care. It was Mahomes' rookie year in 2017. The last time they were there and lost a game. They haven't played there since their Super Bowl era or Super Bowl runs here. So with that said, I like KC big here, handling the Giants. I think Russ could still have a good day, but I think KC is going to go out trying to prove something, and I think they're going to lean on that ground game by committee a lot this week against the Giants. But you do got to watch out for that Giants defensive line, because if they start stopping them and force Mahomes to do everything like he's had to do the first 2 weeks, it may be an upset in the making, but I think there's other upsets possible this week outside that one that would be bigger. And then capping off Monday night, Detroit at Baltimore. I got Baltimore in that game. I think we see more of the offense from Detroit that we've seen at the Bears. Although I think Lamar and those Ravens are just really, really frustrated from that week 1 loss, and they're not going to give away anything easy. And to beat them, you're going to have to play an entire game until that clock hits all zeros. And if Jared Goff and the Lions and Dan McCampbell can't be on the same page for a full game, this could be a tough one for the Lions. And before we sign off here, hitting you with my best bets for the week. Last week, if you tailed me on it, $20 would have won you $120 on the C-Mac, Puka, and Gibbs anytime touchdowns last week. I enjoyed that very much and got myself a nice sandwich for lunch. TD scorers I like this week. I like James Cook, Buffalo, Jonathan Taylor, Indy, and give me Mike Evans for Tampa this week. I see him getting in the end zone and them really getting going. Parlay didn't fare too well last week, so we'll take the wash on 0-1 there. This week, Cincinnati's the dog. They're plus 126 right now. I kind of like that line. Same thing, Rams straight up money line plus 152. I think that defense could slow down the run, force Jalen Hurts to throw, and I just don't think it'll translate if they force him to go through the air like that. I like the Rams in that game, and I like Green Bay minus 8.5 this week. They're that's minus 105. That brings us to plus 1011 for this parlay. 20 will win you 202.38. And with that said, I look forward to seeing everybody next week on the Sports Soup. Peace out.